Hello, good evening everyone. I'm happy to meet you again on another video. Uh, this time I'm going to deviate again from our regular series where we were talking about universe research. Now I'm going into the research topic of moon. So in our moon life, there are three major sections if you would notice. It's universe research, moon research, and earth research. Three have its own characteristics, out of which two are I'm very clear of, like the two, which is the universe and the moon research. Uh, if you see, the moon research has a bit more practical sense to it, where not only the definition of the nature of the research and the elements pertaining to the research are being discussed. At the same time, solutions in terms of actual practical methods are being given. And if you see in universe research, the same thing, elements of the universe research would actually form, a great fundamental basic understanding for how we are to understand the aspects of moon research. But many aspects of moon research would be very radical. The reason I'm saying it's radical is because it talks about creating living condition on the moon, and the simple possibility of it is brought about in all of the research articles, and the simple nature of the research is what makes it truly unique. And it's important to not mistake the simplicity that is it this is as simple as it looks. Rather, it takes quite an amount of specificity and clarity and effort and coming togetherness in making this complete, and making this complete in terms of making it a reality. At the same time, understanding the true depth of it requires all of this. So I just finished translating purification in the method of chemistry, and in this topic, if you would see, it very much describes the nature of the moon research that is currently underway in our institute. It's like it talks about how the human population and its necessity in the current world scenario, and its requirement in us creating a living condition on the moon. And that need is shown over there. It shows like what environment the research is currently being undertaken, and the reason why it's told out in a research article is that it shows the nature in which the research basis and the environment is formed, and that is the premise from which the research is being undertaken. It is also important to note that this is the knowledge I've gathered from the research article and presenting it in my perspective. So in this particular article, we see, though it's talked about chemistry, it connects all the three elements of physics, chemistry, and the biological element, where chemistry plays a huge role in the defining part of the article. And it is important that when we are trying to understand the play of chemistry in all of this research, and how the nature of physics and biology intertwines in this whole element, gives a better understanding of how elements are placed. That is exactly why, if you see in the beginning of the article, the importance of physics as a solution is being talked about, and in that, how the natural structures are being corrected, and the outcome of that, it's being naturally corrected, and how the outcome of it is being researched in the format of chemistry. So it just defines the perspective here. It's similar to this is where the universe research topics comes very handy in understanding these perspectives. It's that it says the nature of the research in which the physics and the chemistry comes in. Like physics, you go into the physical nature of it, like you go actually physically correct a natural environment in such a way that it is natural and to life, sustainable to life. When this correction, when the nature is moving towards this corrected field, right, the each and every outcomes of it can only be defined in terms of its property, right? Like if, for instance, a soil has lost its complete health, and it has no way of supporting life. When it's moving towards a place where it's gaining back its cohesive nature, the adhesive cohesive, right? Like the cohesive nature of this soil is got back, and when it is moving towards these phases, each and every property of it can only be analyzed in chemical format, right? The chemical property of it can only be analyzed. So these, when the physical element is being done, the chemical part of the research, the chemistry part of the research will happen in parallel from these outcomes, is what is defined in this article. Then as you go further, the first method that would be used in correcting the nature of the moon, where we are going to use heat and water as a cycle. We call it the heat water or the heat cold cycle. In it, we're talking initially about the water's importance, where what is like measured in terms of the chemical aspect, the chemical property of it. And this again, the universe research topic is going to play a huge role in understanding the depth of these words that are being placed in this article. That is like in the first, in the second and the third purifications, the taste of the water is being measured, and then the nature, the touch, the feel of the water is measured, and the viscosity, the solidity of the water is measured, and the color of the water is measured. And all of these four elements, right, if you look really closely, it is going into the senses element of it. It's not going into any particular element. The reason why senses are given such priority over here is because we are looking at a planetary scale, and we are looking to create the scale in a minute nature that it would favor the life of life that has come from Earth. So to support a life from Earth, all of these elements to become natural to support the life of Earth, all of these sense natures should take a proper should attain a pass mark for it to move further. So that's very well discussed over here, and again with a statement of how important the water is to life in general is being quoted in the box. It is an old saying in Tamil. In our culture, we would say "Neerindri amayadu ulahu," which means without water there will never be a world. So there'll never be a world. So uh, which means that which is further explained in the same article, where it says that without water there wouldn't be a life form. Similarly, there would never be a world that is found around you. And how this water, this quoting this over here, why is it so important, is that it explains how important the water is to life, and it shows the natural connection with how life exists within us and how life exists as a whole on the planet. So it's pretty similar, like without water our body is nothing, and similar to that, without water there isn't a world that is to be created, there is nothing. So with such importance, all these like sensory elements to be corrected in the nature of the water is so important, and that is exactly what is discussed in this part of the article. And as we move forward, again similar to water, the nature of soil correction importance is also noted, and here a little bit extra number of elements are being discussed, where the soils smell, the nature of the soils gluing together, the cohesive nature of the soil, like soil becoming, like when you hold the soil from the upper surface of the moon, and if you like have water on it and hold it together, it should like form together as one unit. Like currently, if you see any particle on the moon surface, would not stick with each other even if water is applied on it, and that needs to come together. And the health of the soil, and here we see the perspective of importance of life is very clearly seen. Without a healthy soil, there can never be a plant growth or even any kind of microbial growth as well. So then the unification in terms of the soil color, see, as the purification is happening, and all these are discussed in terms of iteration. As the iteration happens, each of these iterations will also improve in its own sense, and that is where the chemistry is measured. And you see, like even in the later part of the article, it said that this completes the chemistry aspect of the entire research on this moon. And it would seem simple, why are we calling it complete in just one method, where it's like water and heat transference, where like the water and the heat and cold in a cycle, how that by itself is going to be like a complete sense of chemistry in our research. Like these elements, right, like look at the amount of details that would go into all of these iterations, and that is exactly why it is said that when this is complete, the chemical aspect of this whole research is complete. So you'd be like doing the purification improvement in the mixed soil. Like, so we'll be taking soil from the surface of the earth with enough nutrition in it, and with microbes and smaller invertebrates, or like very small sized animal life, the microbial life with it, and we would mix it on the surface of the soil. And this mixture, right, it needs to come into another state of purification, where it naturally sets with each other. And this step is important as we are trying to create a life similar to that of the earth. So it is important that the transference, like the changeover happens naturally. So it's not so easy that we just like go from one planet to another, make a living over there. So that happens, and the state of microbial health of microbes on the moon to live on the surface of the soil. So microbes that live below the soil surface of the moon, when they come to the surface, right, they'll need to have such a stable conditions, not only the conditions, the health of the soil to support such a life, right, needs to be perfect. So that would be measured in this part of the research, and it is also said that conditions favorable to microbes of other planet, that is something like our planet Earth, is also made available over there. And such many aspects come into play, and when they are complete, it forms you know the complete nature of chemical research that's going to happen here, the chemistry based research that's going to happen there. So when we go into the topic of rain, rather than the heat and cold nature of its nature. When they say nature of its nature, the way it exists naturally. So the heat cold nature comes into play over here because we are talking about purification of soil and water through a rotational method. And this is a practical implication. Here, when this mode gets into a complete formation, we start seeing rain. So in this rain formation, it's easy to assume that the moment the soil's nature comes down uh, to a natural format, and the water comes down to being a natural existence in the planet, it is very easy to assume that the necessary environment required for life to commence is already there. As we see the microbes coming to the top of the soil to live a natural life, which is a very good indication. But here in the article, if you see, we're talking about the way drinking water is going to be consumed, and how the nature favorable to the plant growth is going to be, the nature of the rainwater to the plant growth. And these are like terminologies you'll need to compare between Earth and separate another planet. This perspective is very important. Only then you would know the depth of these requirements, where we are talking about a completely different natural structure. So hence these elements play a very deep role, and this is very much related to the chemistry aspect of the article that is being talked about over here. And similarly, the method favorable to agriculture, how will the method be favorable to agriculture? So, and for living beings, when we talk about food being prepared over there, and water being stored in terms of reservoir, and the situations required for research and medicine. So all of these, when you see the chemistry aspect of it and its nature being analyzed, so here is a very important point comes by, and it's very important to clearly look at it, which is noted in green in the article. If you see all these methods, right? These methods that are being in favor, and at the same time, the researches that are being done on these methods in a chemistry format. You see this method, this elements coexisting. When they are coexisting, the nature of heat and the cold around this situation needs to be in favor of this. And if it is not in favor, this corrective actions needs to be performed in both the nature of how it needs to exist and the nature of kind of research that's being done over there in terms of the chemistry. You look at the scale, right? We are talking about altering the way of the researches that needs to be done, and what is the result that's coming out of the previous rotational evolution, where we see like the water and soil being purified. So out of that outcome we see the rain. So elements from there also plays a role in this. So all of this coming together, and it is also stated in the box where if the heat and the cold nature joins in necessary value, and that is how life is is created. When they say live life, it's about a complete life that it is being described, like where all parts of the nature coexist in a very synonymous and a cohesive way, and that's what is described. It's more of a feeling where everything is so rightly balanced. So that's the kind of nature we are talking about here. When this all of this is getting achieved, so all aspects, it just extrapolates, this element just extrapolates the factor that all of these drinking water, or like we're talking about plant life's growth in this nature, all of these elements is going to go through in another planet. So the nature of that planet needs to be in a more digestive way for all of these elements. So that is where all of these elements come together. We're making sure all of these steps are like all aligning in the same directions and aligning towards live life. And it's called out in many parts of our research articles where we talk about livelihood life, or live life, where we talk about the essence of complete life being created. And then we move on to the subject where we talk about breathable air in the topic, but there isn't much talked about breathable air, but rather we are talking about planetary gravity and the jobs of the core signature, that is the core of the planet's rotation. And this just shows that all of these activity connects to that part of the entire planet's nature. So, and it just shows the scale. It's important that it is connected. These elements are connected in this part of the article. It's very important. The reason here is that that is only when we, as people who are trying to take forward this research, we would understand all the elements of the research. You'll gain a complete perspective without this being put in this part of the article. That is exactly why the universe research is also very important, where this whole perspective plays a huge role in coming together as one unit in making this a reality. And that is where this wholesome element is brought over here, where we are talking about planet gravity and the core signature rotation itself would be directly in connect with the elements when all of these elements are currently interacting on the upper surface. All of the elements in the heat, air, soil, and water, all in functional state, being in functional state, and in being purified at the same time. So at this point, we are talking about similar to the same perspective of generalizing the entire flow of the article. You see, we're talking about how the physics part of the element and the chemistry part of the element is balanced with each other and equalized to perfection. So this element, this trying to equalize it, is an perspective where it shows that it is not only important that this balancing is important. The reason is to do it at this scale, right? The scale of this whole project is so big that you're trying to make a planet livable for people of another planet. So when such an undertaking is done, when all of these elements, right, like when we're talking from the initial part, from where soil and water is being purified, to heat and cold situation being in conjunction with it, and all the chemistry that is involved in all of these research process, and what type of research is going to be done, and when all of this are connected, and it is so important that this balance is maintained in the right way, and even that is taken care of. Here is what is such a reassuring factor for taking the research forward. It's so well taken care. Like it forms like a kind of a bracketing element, ensuring that we are all of this is in a very connected and controlled state, where everything connects with everything in a very precise manner. This part is very important in that, and with that we conclude on to a point where we're saying all of this when nature on the moon is being corrected, and the livelihood similar to the earth is being ready, and this is the time to start all the livelihood activity on the moon. And that is exactly where our current perspective, world perspective stands, where we think about, whenever we think about moon, we think about like we going and making an settlement over there, or like something like we creating a living lab over there, so that we could protect ourselves from the natural structure over there and try doing some research. That part commences over here. I mean, we going and living over there, and to going to that part, look at the amount of work that needs to be done to get to that part, and that by itself has its own subject to it, where you need to get accustomed to the environment, and there will be the connection that happens between earth and moon in terms of livelihood transference. So there will be like other more number of living beings that are being transferred from our planet to the moon, and the evolution of the whole livelihood structure keeps improving. These things would follow it. Even for that to start, so much amount of research and depth is required to get to that point, and that is very much a possibility of this research. And I hope to connect back with you on another video. And in this particular video, this is my first video with the moon part of the research. And I would also like to iterate to you, while reading the article, the way the English is structured is unique compared to usual research articles. The reason is to bring out the perspective in these articles are more important than making it sound right. So it's like so many elements of the article connect with each other in a very meaningful way. And not only this article, all of the articles has its connections points here and there, and that is why the English is structured in such a way. If you could read between the lines and connect what I'm trying to convey, it would make a lot of sense, and I would truly appreciate you sharing your perspective as well. And I hope to connect back with you on another video. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great day.